Alright, here's this week's piece. It is vintage in excellent condition, certainly not antique. It has a faux top that is not wood, but it only has one little scratch on it. It has these really cool bifold doors that I loved. I love the hardware on the bottom of those, not so much on the top, but it's fine. So to start with, I'm just going to take the hutch part off because I don't want it on there, and I will actually sell it in two different pieces. So it's really easy to do on this one. You just pop out the little caps there, and there's screws hidden underneath. You just unscrew it. It wasn't glued down or anything. It was a very easy disassembly, so that was fun. I've had some much harder ones to deal with. I was very thankful that this one was so nice and easy. So there's just a little bit of dust built up around, and then of course there's holes where the screws were in, so I'm going to be taking my Durham's rock hard putty and filling those with that. Again, this top is not real wood, it is a laminate, so we're filling this and it's going to get painted. And I let this putty dry a smidge, and then I'll go over it with a damp cloth and I can wipe back extra so it'll lessen my sanding time. Then I'm going to remove this hardware. I am going to keep all of this hardware because, like I said, I like the bottom ones, but they match the top, so. I'm taking my Chalk Mountain cleaner and I'm going over this entire piece with a Scotch-Brite pad, so that's going to actually kind of give it a scuff sand as I go. I'm taking off the hinges on the doors because it's going to be a blend and I don't want paint on the hinges. Sometimes I'll paint the hinges, sometimes I won't. It just kind of depends. But I did make sure to number the hinges so I knew where they'd go later. And then I'm going to add some decoupage just to these front sections. So I'm priming those so that I have a nice solid even color underneath the papers. And then I'm also priming the top because that top was so slick. I just felt like it would be a good idea to prime that over that faux wood there. Plus the top gets more use than anything else, so I want to make sure that it's nice and stable. So I'm sure you've seen this before, but I'm just taking my Chalk Mountain Satin Poly, getting it everywhere. These sheets I actually had left over from a previous project. They are from Zazzle. So these were just cuttings from another piece and I wanted to use them up. They were still pretty and nice, so that's what I'm doing here. These are really easy. It's the thicker tissue paper that they have. I will link it obviously down below. But so I'm just using my brayer to smooth it out. Make sure there's no wrinkles in this at all. It's very easy to work with because it's the thicker tissue paper. And then I'm taking a razor blade and just cutting around the edges to get the exact shape that I want. So here I've got all my colors out. I just chose them based on the colors in these papers. So I have some pinks, browns, grays, and purples, and that's what I'm going to be blending together. A lot of times I'll have out more colors than what I'll need, just in case. But I end up using less, so that's always fun. And then I'm doing a base placement. That means I'm not worried about blending right now. I'm just putting the colors in the spots next to the paper where I think they should go. And it could change later or not, it kind of just depends, but I'm just laying it down so I have kind of an idea and see where it's going to go from there. And then I can start kind of blending the colors back and forth, kind of changing the tone of them and making it all fit in. And it's actually really great with these little wells that are around the middle section there because it makes your blends look just so much easier. I can't explain it. Those extra little grooves down there, because there's shadow and light playing in it because it's not a fully flat surface, it's really easy to blend in there because they almost don't have to be perfect. So I'm just working this through here. And as I let these dry, I do kind of let them sit up like that, but for right now, I'm not too terribly worried about getting in the back edge. I'm just kind of, again, doing color placement because this is just the first coat. So it's okay if it touches the other side of the door. I did bust out the smaller brush. It helped a lot in that well right there, just because it's so recessed. My larger brushes weren't doing the best of jobs getting down in there and blending everything out. But as you can see, I literally just work back and forth between the colors. Whatever color I have on my brush, I work that into the other colors, and if I have to go back into the previous color, I do that with the other brush. I'm never worried about contaminating my paint or my other brushes. If I have to, I can wipe them off. If that's something you're concerned with, you can do separate pots for all your paint. You can do clean brushes for each one and then have a blank blending brush if that's how you like to do it. There's tons of ways to blend. I found that almost every piece that I do is a little bit different, and I'll have a different technique for it because it requires a different technique. So for this one, it's really easy, just going back and forth. I'm never too concerned with it. I just go and play and kind of zone out and get lost in my own little world while I'm doing this. So this will be the second coat, and now is where I'm going to decide where I really want all the colors, how deep I want them to be, all that. So I'm starting on the outside because I know that I want the outside of these to be the darkest, and they're going to fade in a little bit to be lighter. And then just going over the previous colors, and anywhere I kind of didn't like something or want to adjust or move, fine tune, all that, that all happens on the second coat here. So those doors were the only thing I had planned on this piece. I had so many ideas where I wanted to go with this. I loved the color of the wood. It was kind of like a warm honey. And so I was going to keep the feet the natural wood color and the top two drawers. I thought that would be good. So I just started painting the frames and then the sides and everything. And I'm just using a small brush. You guys, I hate using tape. I will use it occasionally, but it's not my most favorite thing. So if I don't have to use it, or I think it'll be easier to not, I won't use it. So I'm not taping anything off. I just use a smaller brush and kind of go a little slower. I know it doesn't look like I'm going slow here because I have it sped up, but I just go a little bit slower and try and figure things out that way. In the middle drawer, I'm working with the same blend. I know I want the overall piece to go from dark up to light at the top. So the middle drawer is getting the light pink color. The bottom of it will go into the gray purple color, and that way it can keep fading up as it goes. And again, this is just the first base coat. I still have no idea how I want this to actually, like if I want the whole thing to be mottled or if I want it to be a smooth upwards blend. because I did the flowers in the bottom, those are mottled with a darker bottom. But I didn't know if I want the rest of the piece to be smooth or if I wanted it to be more of the stormy kind of blend. I don't know, like I said, this piece was kind of everywhere for me. And usually, once I get an idea in my head, everything goes really, really smooth and it just flows. And I was just struggling with this one and I could not figure out how I wanted it to end up. So that's where I'm at now. So between all my coats, everything gets just a slight rub down, sand, nothing too abrasive, just smoothing it out so I have a nice smooth finish when I'm done with the piece. And I'm adding a bit of water to help my paint slide on. And I kind of, after seeing it with this just smooth horizontal blend up, I decided that I do want it to be just a little bit smokier instead of having just the perfect transition lines up. So we're gonna go a little bit different here. So that's why the colors aren't perfectly uniform going across now, because I've decided that that is not how I want this to end. So again, that's what the second coat's for, to really kind of figure out what you're actually doing. And then I put this drawer in and decided I absolutely hate the top two drawers being wood now. I just feel like it's too much of a break between the top and the bottom, and it just was too much. So what I did was kind of did a blended trim around the outside edge of the drawer, and then I was like, oh, I'll do a stencil. So I still get the peeking wood through the stencil, but it still has color to kind of tone it down and get it to be that blend up over the piece. And looking at just the drawers, I love it. I love the way that that looks. However, when I look at the drawers and the bottom with the decoupage papers, I hate it. So this did not stick around. It was very frustrating because I really enjoy looking at it, just the drawers like that, but yeah, can't do it with the papers. It was too different. Couldn't have both of those things. They were clashing just a little too much. So top drawers got blended in along with everything else. And then on the bottom, I decided just to keep that one piece of wood trim, and that's it. And then I'm just going to seal everything up with poly. So I add quite a bit of poly on my brush, and then I'll do just kind of getting it on there, and then after I get it on there, I'll do long, smooth strokes. The doors are a little bit harder because they have that huge well in there. You just kind of have to work quickly and meticulously. And that's kind of a hard combo, but it wants to pool and be a pain. In the top, you can see I have a couple blank spots from my first coat that I left. I left those on purpose because once your poly starts setting up, you don't want to keep running over it with your brush to try and get every spot that you missed. Just know that you'll come back and get it on the second coat, the third coat, however many coats you're doing. This top got 3 coats of poly. The rest of the piece had 2 coats of poly. So then see, I have my hinges labeled so they're going on in the exact same spots that I took them off. This is because on older pieces especially, if you put them in a different position that they were in originally, a lot of times your doors won't fit. So it's important to make sure that you have those labeled and they go right back where they started. So now that these doors are going back on, we can just do the finishing touches, which is really the funnest part. So I'm taking my satin poly, and then I'm mixing 2 glazing dusts together. It is the bronze and silver glazing dust, and it creates like this rose pewter color. It was so stunning that I actually decided to paint my nails in it as well, which is awesome. So anyways, I just did the finishing touches with this stuff, and that's it. Oh hi, Taryn here, and got another piece for you, obviously. This one took some turns, not for the worst, but there were some turns. So I always know where I'm going to start out with. On this, it was just using up that leftover decoupage paper, and then once I start a project, it usually just kind of unfolds in a lovely way, and then I like everything that's happening. And that was not the case this time. But she turned out lovely. I'm very excited about it. We'll see how fast it sells. Quickly, I just want to say thanks again to everyone who has just been subscribed and following me and just leaving the most amazing comments. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get into some photos for you.